Dr. Inder Gopal, welcome to INDIAai. It's so
Thank,
great to have you here with us.
thank you, thank you.
So, Dr. Gopal, you had a very impressive journey in terms of education and career. Spanning from Oxford, Columbia, IBM, Ericsson, now at IISA. All this, how do I say, very powerful, important names. And uh, so, where did it start? I mean, we are looking at in a world we are living, which is getting more and more driven by data and algorithms.
Hmm,
We are
hmm,
seeing people. It's a fact that more people should make that switch into data. Domain expertise not enough these days. You need to have that expertise on data, and many people are
yes.
hesitant to make that slight shift. So I think your journey can be a very inspirational lesson. So can you please give us a deep insight into your inspiration and your journey?
So of course, yeah. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the opportunity. Um, I- I started my career as a researcher, right? And I got my PhD, and as with a lot of young people coming out of graduate school, I wanted to do all kinds of interesting, cool things. And so I did that for a while, and then I thought, hey, look, you know, uh, research is interesting, and you're doing good things, but then I wanted to have more of an impact, right? I wanted to actually get something accomplished that I could look back and say, oh yeah, I did that. That's something that would have turned me. So then I moved from research into more of a role of building products, right? Creating products. So I moved from the research lab into development in the companies, large companies I worked for. I did a couple of startups, to try to create value, and that was all very exciting. And we created some new products, services, you know. And there's a lot of satisfaction from doing that. Taking your technology, your ideas, and then seeing it in a way that is not restricted to your lab or your your papers that you write, but then actually seeing something that people are using, right? I mean, companies are using, it's creating benefit for people. And so that really kind of excited me and motivated me. And of course the excitement of doing startups is also completely different from working in a corporate sector. And I did that for a little while. Then I thought, hey, look, I mean, yeah, I've done that for a while, but everything has been with a commercial context, right? So I thought, let me try to take it a little bit further and try to do something where I can really bring technology directly to the benefit of citizens, to the benefit of people, right? And that's when I thought, hey, look, I mean, started talking to some of the people I had, known well from ISC, and they said, we've got some very good ideas on on smart cities and how to, create value out of the data that's being generated in smart cities. And why don't you come and, be a research professor over here, and then help us create the value. And then I started working with the so I came, and then I started working came to Bangalore. I started working with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in Delhi, and started learning a lot about the problems that urban India is facing, right? And then started understanding how technology can be applied to addressing those problems, right? So to me, it was not so much the technology, the data science aspect, but more the fact that this is an area where you can really take technology and you can impact people's lives. You can make people's lives better. That's what excites me now, and that's why I'm doing this IUDX project, because I think it can really impact people's lives. It can improve the way in which we live in cities, and I think if we can even accomplish 1/10 of what I think we can potentially do, I think it could be a good contribution to the Indian ecosystem.
I think that's very important what you just shared. I mean, technology alone doesn't account for nothing unless it's applied
Yes.
to the right, finding the right problems and applying for the most impact. So, Dr. Gopal, so now can you explain? I mean, IUDX is a very new initiative. It's
Hmm.
an year old and it has a lot of potential. So, can you explain what IUDX and what is its mandate right now?
Sure. So IUDX, it stands for India Urban Data Exchange, right? So, and really that's what it's doing, exchanging data, allowing people to exchange data, right? So, we, as I said, we're working with the Smart City mission in Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which has been going on for about 5 to 6 years now. And Smart City Mission has been building a lot of these lighthouse smart cities, putting a lot of sensors and smart, devices into cities, and they're getting a lot of data. Getting a lot of data within there's 100 cities, right, and all kinds of data is coming. But the problem is that that data is not being used effectively, right? So why is it not being used effectively? Because the data very often is in what we call silos, right? It is, one part of the city is creating some data, say, I don't know, the police department may be generating data, or the fire department, or, the hospital system. And then if you have some emergency response and you want to coordinate the data, you want to, take the data from the fire department, the police department, put it all together, create some coordinated application. You cannot do that, because the data, firstly, the different parts, the different silos don't even know what data is available. Right. Forget about, how to use it. They don't even have idea of what the data is. They don't have, even if they know what the data is, they don't know what format the data is in. There are no standards. They are, and very often there are security issues. One department is saying, who are these people? Why should I share the data with them? What authority do they have? And so all these problems are occurring within the city. So the problem is the data is just sitting there. It's not being used. It can be of great value. So we said, hey, look, let's try to build some technology that will allow this sharing of data. Right? And so that's really the notion of a data exchange. Right? It's very different than if you think about the corporate sector, right? I mean, say the enterprise environment. If you want to use data in the enterprise, you have this thing called a data warehouse. You bring all the data in, right? And then you all the data comes to one place. It becomes, you have some standardized way of getting to the data. You can build applications, analytics, all that. But in a city, data is sitting everywhere, right? To bring it into one place it's very cumbersome. It's not something that is practical very often, and the departments want to keep control of the data. They don't want to just give it to someone. So we created this concept of an exchange, right, where we don't actually pull the data in. We try to give you the ability to find the data and the ability to get access to the data, but we don't make the owner of the data relinquish control of the data, right? And that has been the key in terms of enabling this kind of sharing. And so that's the main purpose, to create data sharing within cities so that people can create new applications, new benefits for citizens, and hopefully improve the people's lives within cities.
I think I keep hearing this quote: India is data rich but technologically poor. And one big complaint when we do interviews, when we talk to people from academia or startup, is this: how data is sitting in silo, and they hold a lot potential if used applied. Yeah. So I want to ask, since you mentioned about the process, right? How is this process take place, right? With the owner of the data, not relinquishing it to control, how can the other person access it? Because few weeks back, I had a conversation with R.S. Sharma, the National Digital Health Mission he was mentioning, and in that platform, the one way your medical health record, right, the electric record, is being accessed by the doctors or hospital through a token system, right, without you losing the control. So how does this process happens in IUDX?
So a key aspect of this is standardization, right? Standardization of the APIs, the programming interfaces, standardization of the way the data is represented, standardization of the way the metadata is also represented. Right. And that is something that is a key aspect. And we are adopting a lot of standards, international standards that we are working a lot with partners around the world. We're also creating some of our own standards that we are now sharing with other parts of the world, and also standardizing within India itself through BIS. Right. So standards is a big aspect. But in terms of the capabilities that we provide, right, we provide basically 3 capabilities, right, within this. So this is IUDX is think of it as is a middleware, right? It's basically it's a piece of software. It's running in the cloud, right? So it's not running in a server or anything. It's running in the cloud, and it is basically logically sitting between the data sources and the applications that are using the data, right? So what it does is three things. It allows you. It has a catalog. So all the data that's available is cataloged. It's available through through the data and the metadata. So the descriptors of the data, what does this data mean? All that stuff is all recorded, and it's available through a catalog. So think of this when you go to a library and you try to find a book, right? You go to a catalog, right? I mean, I don't know. Now people don't go to libraries
Now
anymore, but
that system, yeah. Back then we had this archive system where you
Exactly. You may be old enough to, you don't look at, but you maybe.
So I studied in Loyola College in Chennai. They had this whole system back then.
Yeah. In the old days, they would have this big, drawers, right? Little small drawers. You pull wooden drawers. You pull it out, and you'll see all these cards, and you go and you say, "Oh, which book can I get?" And then exactly like that, we have a catalog, right? And it tells you, okay, the data is available here. Then the second thing we do, so that's the catalog. Second thing we do is we have what I call a consent service, right? So the consent service basically says, look, the owner of the data can specify the terms and conditions and who can get access to the data, when they can get access, for how long, and whatever terms they want to specify associated with that. It may include even payment potentially. So all that is recorded, right? And that's under the control of the owner of the data. And then we basically enforce that. We make sure that contract, that consent framework is enforced, right? So when somebody comes in and says, I want to get this data, we make sure that they have authorization to get the data, right? And that's the consent service. So it's a fairly sophisticated thing. It needs a lot of work. There are many different forms. Some of it payment, some of it membership, some of it some of it may be open data, right? So open data, if you've made every data open, nobody would put there would be very limited data that would be available, right? So you have to have some control. But some data may be open, right? Or even if you have say some data that's available, you may say, okay, these two fields of the data that anybody can have. But then if you want the full data, you have to pay, or you have to be a member of some organization or, something like that, So those are things we can enforce, right? So that's the type of thing. The third thing is what we call a resource server, which actually is the movement of the data, the actual transfer of data from the source of the data to the consumer of the data. So we'll essentially set up a connection between the originator of the data, the recipients of the data. We will transform the data from one format to another format as the data is transferred into a standard format. So when the application is getting the data, they don't have to understand where the data is coming from. All right. So for example, if you have, let's say, streetlight data, right? You may have Philips and Bajaj streetlights. They may be creating very different types of, data that's available. One may be representing the luminosity in one way. One may be doing it a different way. And they may have different standards, different data representations. But the underlying data that's being described is the same. So we will transform all that, right, into a common form. And so when you look at the data and you get the data, you don't have to know, is it coming from Bajaj, is it coming from Philips? You just know this is streetlight data. This is the way I interpret it. And then you can use it in your application, right? And so if the city then goes and changes the vendor, that doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
So those are the three things. Traceability also, right? The traceability of where the data went.
Flexibility, what they call vendor independence, right? So the city can change vendors, right? A big problem with cities right now, right, is that, basically when you go to a vendor and you start working with that vendor, you're kind of locked in, right? Because everything is kind of like this vertical, closed system, right? From the data source to the data application that is using the data, everything is one application, right? And there's no possibility that you can say, okay, this company is very good at collecting the data, but is not so good at writing the visualization of that data, right? So I want a different company coming and doing that visualization, but I want to keep the same company doing the collection. You cannot do that, right? So what we do is we allow that kind of disaggregation, and then the ability to mix and match and to do vendor independence, which is a huge benefit from the city point of view. It completely transforms the potentially the tendering process, right? And gives the cities a lot more, control in terms of, how they can leverage the data, how they can take the best company, matching them to the skill that they can, that is best represented in that company, as opposed to trying to make a compromise and having, one company try to do everything, right? Which is kind of where they are right now. So there are many benefits from a city point of view, but also from the companies, from a startup point of view, right? I mean, it gives, if you're a startup right now, let's say you're a startup and you have some very clever ideas on how to, let's say, create smart parking, right? And that is your specialty, right? And then, many companies, small startups that are doing this. So right now, if you want to go and get data on, hey, look, with the street, the parking spots that are available, either from garages or in street parking and all that, it's very hard for you to get that data. You don't have the money to go and put sensors. You don't have the money to, but many of these things are already there, right? So the what we are doing is we're allowing startups to find out what data is available. If they have to have some kind of payment for that data, we can give them a very standard way in which they can pay for the data, get access to the data, so they can go and they can actually unleash that innovation, right? Their expertise is in creating the application and the service. Their expertise is not in collecting the data or in negotiating with all the city, various bodies within the city to get data. They can use IUDX as that common platform, right? So our hope is it will create, and we're already seeing this. It will create a whole opportunity for startups, opportunity for entrepreneurial companies, for innovation. This is all something that we are trying to accomplish.
And by being this middle platform, IUDX is pretty much also taking away this concerns of privacy and security away from the both the sides as well, right? Which is a general big concern.
So we are very conscious of privacy and security, right? So we deal with that in a few different ways. One is the focus of IUDX is on non-personal data, right? So we don't deal with personal data, right? So if there's data that is relating to a particular individual, right? Then we avoid that data. We also don't store data. We mostly are a pipe. We are transit for the data, right? So we don't actually store the data. Data is remaining in the originating source of data source. Even now there are some cases where you can infer individual data from non-personal data, right? So there's some potential privacy exposures. So for example, just to give you an example, if you have let's say a traffic sensor, right, that is counting the number of, let's say, vehicles that is going past a certain point, right? If you put that traffic sensor on the main road, it's just counting, how many cars are going by. That's completely non-personal, right? And there's no problem in terms of, that data. On the other hand, if you put a similar traffic sensor, say in a small street, right, where only two houses are, right? There are only two houses there, right? And now you can count the number of vehicles. Right away, it's those two people, those two houses. So when they're coming, when they're going, and if you exploit that data, that becomes personal data, right? So you may think it's non-personal, but actually it's personal. And so we are trying to create some algorithmic. So we're doing a lot of work now to create algorithmic techniques, right? There are techniques like, for example, differential privacy, which is a cryptographic technique that protects some data, but still allows you to do analysis on the data. So it protects the private, masks the privacy of the data. So we are working a lot with colleagues in ISC and other places to create some clever new algorithms that we can bring to IUDX that will shield privacy for these kinds of cases. But I think for the most part, we try to deal with data that does not have major privacy concerns, right? So
it's such a great initiative. So, and I know it's only 1 year and the potential you as mentioned. So, Dr. Gopal, where we stand right now in terms of deployment, which I mean, the smart city mission itself is very ambitious. We have been
yeah,
so many initiatives
of
happening.
course, of
What about
course.
IUDX?
So we have, by the way, we're very, very much in awe of the smart city mission, because I think they have a very strong leadership. They have very strong vision in terms of where they want to go, and they have also had the foresight to understand the value of data and then initiate programs such as IUDX and support us, right? I mean, support us, and so I think that's been a very strong positive. But in terms of where we are, we have deployed the system now in 10 cities, right? So IUDX is now running in 10 cities, ranging from pretty small cities like Agartala, for example, or to mega cities like Bangalore and Chennai. So we have kind of range of cities, from medium size, small, medium, large. We have actually created we've brought a lot of data onto IUDX, right? So a lot of data is now available through IUDX. If you go to iudx.org.in, and I encourage all of the viewers of this to please do that, and provide us feedback, right? I mean, we really want community to kind of give us some response and understanding of, hey, what do you think we could be doing? Where are we doing something right or not doing something right? So iudx.org.in. But what you will see there is a lot of data, all kinds of data from different sources. Some of it is public and available to all. Some of it you need some, access control, and you need some permission to get. And that's all come on. And then we have also built some applications, right? So what we thought is, look, just getting the data there. Yeah, I mean, that's our job. But we need to do more than that. We need to show some use cases of how the data can be used to benefit people, right? So, for example, in Surat, right, we have created an application with a partner, right? So we're working with all of these. We're working with private sector partners. So with a partner, we have created an application that will use the data coming from IUDX. It will, related to buses, right? So we're getting, bus location data, but we're also getting, fare data from the fare collection system, right? The automatic fare collection system. And we use that data to estimate, firstly, when is the arrival time of a bus at the stop? But more than that a lot of people are doing. More than that, we estimate how many people are on the bus. Okay. So before you get on the bus, you can see, a red, green, orange kind of icon of a person, and you can tell you, is the bus very crowded, and it is empty, right? And that is very helpful, firstly, for elderly people. Also for people, in COVID times, do I have the ability to social distance, right? Those are things that people can do. So that's one application, an example, right? Another thing we have done in Varanasi is we have taken data on solid waste management, right? So from garbage bins, they have instrumented a lot of these garbage bins. They've instrumented the garbage truck pickups. Varanasi has a lot of little gullies here or there, so they have hand carts, all that. So we have also used a lot of smartphone-based applications, within the operators of the carts and the operators of the drivers of the trucks. And then we're using all that information, and then we are creating a ability to basically optimize the way in which you pick up garbage, which we think over time can reduce the cost by something like 20%. For the whole operation of waste pickup, and make it much more efficient, make it more environmentally safe, so because the trucks are not going to be sitting there idling, things like that. We can basically, make it better for citizens in many different ways, right? In terms of cost and in terms of impact and efficiency. So that's another one. And just to give you one third example, final example, we are working in Pune, right, on an application related to safety, citizen safety, particularly women's safety, right? So there, if you're, let's say you're a young woman, you want to walk to your home, say it's nighttime, you want to walk home, to your home. You want to know, maybe not, the walking route, but not just the shortest route, but the safest route, right? So you want to find, for example, the streets where the street lights are working, right? Because many of them are not working, right? So which street lights are working? Where are there crowds of people, right? And if the crowd, for example, some crowds may be, you may be completely safe, right? You may want to, if it's a crowd of, family crowd, that's a perfectly safe area for you to walk. But if it's a crowd of, let's say, young males, right, young men, maybe you want to stay away from that area, right? Maybe you want to kind of avoid it. So it's not just the density, and you can measure density by looking at the video images, and the video analytics can do that. But you also do want to do gender diversity of the crowd, right? So that's also something that video analytics can do. And then you want to look at property records, right? Like which streets are, if you have some abandoned warehouse or something, maybe that's not a good place for you to walk, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, if it's a apartment building with lots of families, that's perfectly fine. You can walk by there, right? So these are things, again, we can get all that data, and then now we have created an application which can give you a safest route, right? And that's something that hopefully will benefit.
It's really,
so these are some examples. Yeah.
Really fascinating, Dr. Gopal, to see how like some of these problems has been plaguing our country or society for years and years, like the food safety issue we have seen from Nirbhaya and all this.
Of course.
And today we have reached a point where we can, use these technologies, data in a clever way where we can find a solution to an extent. It is quite fascinating. And in a 1 year span, it's so many great things that came from IUDX. It's quite exciting. So what are the next steps for IUDX, right? 1 year, we have, great things have been happened, great things been implemented. So what is the plan for the year 2?
So plan for the year 2 is to increase the footprint, right? So from 10 cities, we'll go to like 25 cities. So that's something we're working on. But also to clearly, what I described to you, the previous applications, a lot of them are still very early, right? People have not, we are excited by them because we think that they can benefit, but the benefit has not yet been evident, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot kind of look at, for example, hard, since we're all data driven, we should have data that shows that benefit, right? And that is not yet there, right? So hopefully over the next year, we can generate some hard data to say, okay, this has really benefited the lives of citizens. Either, I don't know, crime has gone down, or cost of, garbage pickup has gone down, or, something like that. These are things that we should be able to show. And, 1 or 2 or 3 clear cases, where there's been some real positive, quantifiable impact, right? That is something I'm looking for. And then the other thing is, a big challenge for us, right, is the culture of data sharing in this country, right? And make, giving people, firstly, the incentive to share data, make data sharing kind of a default, right? People, and this is true both of government sector as well as private sector, right? If it is community data, if it can help the public, please share the data, right? I mean, do not hoard the data, because you personally will benefit more by sharing the data that you're collecting than by keeping it to yourself, right? It'll make your data more valuable, and you will find, even if you're just concerned in a very selfish way about monetization of the data, by sharing it, you can create more users and you can create value for your data, right? So to share the data, right? That's something that I would really encourage everybody to do. Take that as a default. And then I think the other thing which is really an inhibitor for us is data quality, right? I mean, if you go to a lot of data sources that are available today, you'll see the quality is quite poor, right? I mean, it is mostly not usable in any
Right.
credible, in any reasonable way. So there must be some quality, and that'll come from having users, right? If you have users, they will enforce quality, and there'll be a kind of a virtuous cycle that takes place. So those are all the things that we are hoping for, as we go forward, right? To kind of create that kind of community of users of data, generate generate, motivated, people who will create and share data, and that virtuous cycle is something that I'm hoping we will start seeing, in the next year or so.
Sir,
But
we are out of time, but I want to ask you one final question. I mean, since you mentioned about how this project can have a bigger impact, right? I think one of
yeah.
the major focus with this smart city initiatives and many other initiatives from our government is to create a citizen-driven governance system, right? Citizen-centric governance system, right?
Mm.
So, how does IUDX, will fit into that framework?
So I think IUDX is an important enabler, right? I mean, it is obviously not, you know, enough by itself,
Right.
right? I mean, there are a lot of government initiatives that have to go around that, and the government also has to be responsive, right? I mean, it is not just putting out data; it's also taking things from the citizens and acting upon that data, and then getting. And I think there's certainly what we have seen, at least in the sectors that we have worked with and within the smart city mission, there's a strong willingness to do that. So I think IUDX is an important enabler, but obviously only part of the story. And the other thing I finally talk about is that this notion of a data exchange, right? This idea of how to share, making this available, data sharing platform available, is we've started in the urban sector, but it is not restricted to the urban sector, right? It is actually much broader than that, and the same concepts that we have created can be applied really in many other sectors, right? Education sector, agriculture, financial, industrial. I mean, there's so many other areas where you can take the same basic ideas and apply this concept of a data exchange. So we're working very closely, not just with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, but also with METI, Electronics and IT Ministry, to bring forward these ideas as part of a cross-sectoral initiative, right? That can apply not just to urban sector, but to these other sectors also, and take the benefit of what we have done and we have incubated within the urban sector, but apply it to other sectors of the government. So that's also something that I'm hoping over the next year or so we will start seeing some traction on. But it's a very, very exciting project. I think both from a technology point of view, and I would encourage anyone who's viewing this, please go to iudx.org.in if you're interested in a very exciting. If you're a technologist and you're interested in very exciting, interesting, work assignment that can hopefully benefit India, the country. Please come and talk to us. We have links on our page, where you can, connect with us, and then we can work with you. Everything is open source that we do. So there's opportunity to contribute, even if you are not part of the company. You have some spare time, you want to write some piece of code, and you want to, add some value to what we're doing. There's opportunity to contribute, right? Because it's all done in open source, and we're trying to create a collaborative open source activity. So there are many ways in which you can get involved. Or if you have the idea of using the data and you want to create some interesting application, again, please, let us know, contact us, and we are very eager to work with startups or people who just have ideas. We can kind of, maybe we can help you brainstorm and come up with something that can benefit.
We will be sharing all the links to IUDX and the other things you mentioned in this when you upload this video. And I mean, I'm very excited about this project. I mean, it's, even though, like you said, it's limited in the starting point, it's mostly focusing on the urban data, but the idea of an data exchange and many of the problems you've been solving, right? The hesitancy in providing data. I mean, we can, the data hoarders, I don't know if that's a word to use, but
Yeah.
getting them to share the data. So those things are very important. And
Yeah.
I think this, and then the replicability of this project is what excites me more, right? You can,
Yeah.
system can be replicated into, like you pointed out, in industrial area or even healthcare. I mean, or in many education sector and other industries as well. So it's very exciting to hear from you, sir, and wishing you all the success, Dr. Gopal. And I'm
Thank you.
wishing, I hope, and I'm not just hoping, I can see how this project will become a transformational success for our country.
I hope you're right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you.